Namaste, my friends. Welcome to Jack Colley's Black Book. This is episode number 28. And we're going to continue looking at judging and applying labels. That's what page 4 of the Black Book seems to be indicating. It's just different ideas about judgment. And we started out last time in episode 27, and I put these on one slide. So on the left, and I don't know if I did this intentionally or not, I probably did, but on the left is liberal, on the right is conservative. And last time we were talking about labels, and I want to suggest something. If you are an individual who you consider yourself liberal, so you are the person who you say, I am liberal, or you are the person that says, I am conservative. First of all, I want to say that maybe the thing to consider here is that when you apply those labels to yourself, and really apply those to other people, you are in effect defining for yourself probably upwards of 15, 20, maybe 30 different characteristics or sets of beliefs and valuations. In other words, when you call yourself liberal or conservative, in our culture, there seems to be this problem because as soon as you call yourself that, you have defined yourself in probably 15, 20, 25 different ways. And I would say that a better approach would be to look at an individual's position on very specific topics. And even then, once you understand their position on a topic, I'm not quite sure what good it does, to attach the label liberal or conservative, because these are just very broad labels, So an individual who has this opinion of abortion versus that opinion of abortion, depending on where they're at in the spectrum, they may be considered liberal, they may be considered conservative, and it's probably subjective with respect to where they are on the spectrum. In other words, okay, well, everybody to my left, we're just going to call liberal. Everybody to my right, we're going to call conservative. It's just an oversimplified model. And you can look at this in all different ways. You can look at this with a lot of the opinions out there about the transgender community, about sexual orientation, about the role of the middle class, the role of capitalism. There's a lot of discussion about patriarchy. You can apply this really across the board. But the problem is we are very complex human beings. We probably have different opinions on different subjects. And to me, if I want to get to know you, I don't want to get to know you as a liberal, because if you come to me and you say I'm a liberal, then I'm going to assume that I already know 10 or 15 things about you. Or if you come to me and you say, and I say, oh, I'm a conservative, you're going to assume that there's 10 or 15 things you already know about me. Instead of having these discussions about, well, what do you think about this? What do you think about this cultural debate? What do you think? To me, that kind of brings out the humanity of people in a lot better way than just kind of attaching these labels. So that's where we're headed. And here's where I want to go next with this. I'm going to make an argument right now about evaluating, and I think the better term would be judging. And I want to start this particular topic, this discussion of judging, by saying I think it's natural. I think it is 100% natural to judge. And I'm also going to say that individuals who say, I don't judge, I'm going to say, yeah, you do. I think it's safe to say you make judgments every single day against people you see, against people you read about, against people you see on your social media feeds. We are always making judgments. And I think that's natural. So, and I don't know the exact reason for that. I mean, some people would say we make judgments to evaluate if another individual is safe to reproduce with. That would be the Richard Dawkins selfish gene argument, is that we exist simply to reproduce. Other people might say, well, we have to evaluate the outsider because we need to have our population evolve. That might be an argument. There are certainly arguments of we have to evaluate somebody to make sure that they're safe in the village. We have to evaluate somebody to make sure, in other words, we have all of these evaluations and these judgments that we make, and these are quite natural. And what I want to encourage today, I think one thing that I have found for myself is that when I find myself making judgments, these things come to my mind. I see somebody who's different than me and I make this judgment and I attach this value of some sort, like, oh, they look dangerous or something like that. I want to encourage you to be with that thought. As soon as that comes into your mind, be with that thought for a moment and see where that might lead you. Because it seems to me that this could happen. It seems to me that if you see an individual who is not like you, so if you see an individual who is not like you, and your brain, the natural part of your brain, kicks in and says there's something different about that individual, and you start to evaluate and you start to judge that individual or make assumptions about that individual or start assessing that individual. Is this person safe? Is this person going to help me reproduce? Is this person going to help the community? Is this person going to help the species evolve? However you want to frame it. I want you to think about how at that point you have an option. And I think this is where our growth comes. I think we spend too much time trying to convince people that we don't judge, when in reality, we all judge every day. I think we have to I think we have to admit that. We all make judgments every day. And part of that is to keep you safe. But part of that too, I think, is for you to overcome so that you can learn to accept more people in your circle. So let me suggest then this. When you see somebody different than you, you have a couple of options. It seems to me that the first option would be to allow that fear to kind of just sit there. There's something wrong with that individual. There's something different about that individual. And then, to me, it is your choice to take it to the next step, which is you then generalize. So this person has this physical characteristics. I'm just not sure about this person. This person is invoking fear in me. Therefore, I'm going to generalize so that the next time I see a person with these characteristics, I'm going to be fearful and I'm just going to jump to a conclusion that I'm unsafe. That is going to really shrink your worldview quickly. The other option is to be aware of this, is to be aware of, why do I have these feelings inside? What's happening here? And what can I do about them so that I can be deliberate about curing anything that needs to be fixed inside of me? Because you're obviously having this reaction. So this would be where racism would come in, right? So this idea that when you see somebody with a different skin color or a different culture, different clothes, somebody who just has a different lifestyle than you, and for some reason it makes you uncomfortable, and instead of asking the question, why am I uncomfortable with this, you automatically associate it with fear of the unknown. Now, again, to some extent, this might save you, like snakes, right? You see snakes, you hear stories of snakes, that they're dangerous, they can bite, they're poisonous, and you generalize so that most people, when they see snakes, there's a kind of a healthy fear of snakes, even if they're a harmless little garden snake. And until you've had a good experience with snakes, you probably are not going to be picking up a snake because you've generalized it. On the other hand, we have to be aware of how these reactions might limit us, how they might keep us from having experiences that are positive with different cultures, particularly as, and I realize that there's nations, I realize there's different cultures, and I think all of that is, different cultures is healthy. We learn from each other. It's important to have that identity. And yet at the same time, it's so important to be able to engage different cultures and have an appreciation. But in order to do that, you have to be aware of your own fear. And so when you have this fear of seeing somebody new and somebody different from you, what are you going to do with that? Because that is your responsibility. That's a feeling that you're having. It's your responsibility. And so try some things. Just say hello. Something simple like that. They say hello back. That fear has gone down. So over the next couple of episodes, we're going to look at things that you can do to overcome some of these fears of perhaps different cultural groups that you have. That it's really more a function of you haven't given the time or space to get to know an individual, and you're kind of living in fear. And I think probably the group on, at least on my radar screen as a therapist right now, I would say is the transgender community right now. I don't think that a lot of people who have strong opinions of the transgender community have really taken the time to get to know an individual who would consider themselves transgender. That's one example of kind of the most recent, I guess, people group that I would consider marginalized. And so we're going to keep looking at this, and yeah, so I mean, we'll pick up there next time. All right. Namaste, my friends.